It was mostly about tying up loose ends from last night's dramatic 7-5 loss to the Florida Panthers last night for the Philadelphia Flyers. Today at practice, John Tortorella and Joel Farabee, who both were not available to speak after last night's game, got a chance to talk about the big moments of last night's game and their parts in it. And we also got a few injury updates as the Flyers look to head to Boston for the first game of a weekend back-to-back against the Bruins and the Utah Hockey Club. I'm Charlie O'Connor with PHLY Sports, and these are your Flyers post-practice notes. So let's start with John Tortorella. John Tortorella, after last night's game, notably did not speak to the media. He sent out assistant coach Brad Shaw instead. Obviously, it was a devastating, eventful loss for the Flyers. They came back from 3-0 and 4-2 deficits, took the lead in the third period, and then gave up the game-tying and game-winning goals with less than 6 minutes remaining. So an emotional game, and John Tortorella chose not to speak. He did, however, speak today during practice. So why did John Tortorella skip post-game availability? His quote today was, "I just didn't think it would be productive." Clearly, he was frustrated, thought he might say something he would regret, so he chose not to speak. However, today he did give a lot of answers, specifically about the end of the game and Joel Farabee's penalty, which led to the game-winning goal on the ensuing power play. Farabee essentially took a penalty, retaliating for Sam Bennett knocking Travis Sanheim into the boards. Farabee seemingly believed it was a dirty play, cross-checked Sam Bennett, then got into a scrum with Gustav Forsling. In the end, Farabee was the one who got the extra penalty, and the Panthers scored on the ensuing power play, so one could certainly say that that was what led to the loss. John Tortorella was asked about it today after practice. So what did Torts think about it? He basically said, look, Joel Farabee's heart was in the right place. He was trying to protect a teammate. That's a key part of the way the Flyers play, the way their entire locker room works. But he needs to have a better handle on situational play. Less than 3 minutes left in a tie game against the defending Stanley Cup champions, especially given the fact that Florida's power play had already scored twice in this game, was firing on all cylinders. Just not the right time to make that kind of play. Tortorella straight up said, maybe you retaliate at some point down the road, whether it's the next time these guys play, the next time the two teams are facing each other, maybe even next season, but not at that moment. So Torts didn't seem mad at Joel Farabee, but just said this is something that the young player, still young player, he's only 24, is going to have to learn. Then after practice, the media spoke with Joel Farabee himself. Now, Farabee was not available after the game. He was getting treatment on his hand, which I believe he messed up in the ensuing scrum/fight with Gustav Forsling. When we spoke with Joel Farabee, he did have a wrapping around a couple of his fingers, so it definitely seems like he did get banged up. But he had a chance to speak with us today after practice and spoke extensively on the penalty and his thoughts on the entire game. First off, Farabee took full ownership of the penalty, called it a really dumb penalty, said that the timing of it was not good, obviously not the right time to do something like that and take a penalty, put the guys down a man and potentially lose the game in regulation, which is obviously what happened. He did mention, though, that he felt part of it was the fact that it was Sam Bennett, who he said all game had been throwing cheap shots to his eyes. Obviously, he took umbrage with the Travis Sanheim hit, but it wasn't just that. He said that Bennett had given Travis Konechny a subtle elbow at the end of the first period, which definitely shook up Konechny for a little bit. Farabee said that Bennett had slashed him specifically right before the Sanheim hit. So this was something that was building all game. Sam Bennett obviously has a reputation of being an agitator and sometimes having a propensity for dirty play. So this didn't come out of nowhere. And clearly for Farabee, that hit on Sanheim was just the bridge too far. Now, Farabee made it clear that that didn't excuse the penalty. He said the timing wasn't good, but just wanted to give a context as to why, as he said, he was probably seeing red a little bit when that Sanheim hit happened. But again, Farabee took full ownership of it, and it seems like both coach and player are on the same page that sticking up for teammates is a good thing. That just might not have been the right time to do it. As for some injury updates for the coming back-to-back this weekend, Boston and Utah, the Flyers did release some injury updates right before practice, namely confirming the day-to-day statuses of Jamie Drysdale and, interestingly enough, Sam Ersson. Now, the Sam Ersson situation is a little convoluted because on Wednesday, when we spoke with John Tortorella and he was asked if Ersson was an option for Thursday's game against the Panthers, Tortorella said he was cleared. Then obviously Ersson did not play in Thursday's game. Not only did he not play, he didn't even dress as the backup. So Tortorella was asked essentially what's going on with Ersson. Is he going to be cleared soon? And Tort said it was his fault, that he probably misspoke on Wednesday when talking about Ersson's status, that they're working on a recovery plan for Ersson, and he's just not yet cleared for action. He was more talking about the fact that he's been cleared to practice, that he's full go to complete all the sessions and the skills, but maybe not quite yet ready to play in terms of the plan the Flyers have for his recovery. Didn't rule out the possibility of him coming back for a game this weekend, and given the fact that both Fedotov and Alexei Kolosov struggled on Thursday night, wouldn't shock me at all if Ersson returns for one of the 2 games of the back-to-back. There's also the fact that the Flyers now do have space available, not just for Ersson to come off IR. He is still on our IR right now, to be clear. But not just for Ersson to come off IR, but also Jamie Drysdale, who's been out for quite a while. Earlier this week, they sent Helge Grans back to the AHL, so that cleared one spot. Ersson could have come off IR once Grans was demoted, but there still needs to be one more spot cleared to get Drysdale back in the lineup, and it appears he is very close to a return. Well, today, Nic Deslauriers was placed on injured reserve. He got hurt seemingly in the early portion of practice on Wednesday. He did start practice with the team, did not finish. John Tortorella mentioned that felt like he tweaked something on a shot early in practice. Look, unclear the specific nature of the injury. That said, assuming this injury is legitimate, and the Flyers certainly seem to believe that it is, it's a very well-timed injury for the Flyers. Nic Deslauriers hasn't played since November 9th. He's been functioning as a healthy scratch for the better part of a month. Putting him on injured reserve does open up a spot for Drysdale, lets them get Drysdale back on the active roster, potentially back in the lineup, without having to make a decision on their 3 goalies. Right now, they still do have 3 goalies, especially if Ersson comes off IR, on their roster with Ersson, Kolosov, and Fedotov. This allows them, for as long as Deslauriers is on IR, to bring back Drysdale, bring back Ersson onto the active roster, and not have to make a decision on their 3 goalie problem. So who will get the start this weekend in goal? Unclear. John Tortorella was asked, was not willing to give specific updates, but it wouldn't shock me, as I said, in the slightest, if Sam Ersson makes his return soon, whether it's Saturday in Boston or Sunday back home. I've been Charlie O'Connor of the PHLY Sports. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
We all silly like the mayor.